The wind was sharp that night, the kind that cut through clothes and made even grown people walk faster. Snow had been falling since afternoon, turning the streets white and quiet. Most homes had their lights on, curtains drawn, heaters working hard to keep the cold out. Inside, one small house at the edge of the neighborhood, a little girl sat near the window, watching the snow fall. She lived with her guardian in that house. It was not a big place, but it was warm and clean. The girl liked the window because it faced the street. From there, she could see the old bus stop, the closed shops, and the narrow alley beside the trash bins. She often watched people hurry past, pulling their coats tight. That night, something else caught her eye. At first, she thought it was just shadows moving in the snow. Then she saw them clearly. 2 dogs were huddled together near the trash bins, their bodies pressed close as if they were trying to share warmth. Their fur was wet and clumped with snow. One of them lifted its head for a moment, then lowered it again, too tired to stay alert. The girl felt a tight feeling in her chest. She had seen stray dogs before, but never like this. These dogs did not bark or move around. They did not fight over food or chase passing cars. They were still, shaking and silent. She wiped the glass with her sleeve to see better. The smaller dog limped when it tried to stand. The larger one kept nudging it, as if telling it not to give up. She turned toward the living room, where the television was playing softly. Her guardian was busy sorting through papers, tired after a long day. The girl knew the rules well. No stray animals were allowed inside. Food was limited, space was small, and caring for animals cost money. She had been told many times not to get involved. But the cold outside did not care about rules. She stood there, unsure what to do. Minutes passed. The dogs were still there. Snow piled up around them, and the wind grew louder. The girl imagined how the cold must feel against their skin. She imagined how lonely it must be to have no place to go when the world turned this harsh. Without making a sound, she put on her jacket and slipped her feet into her shoes. Her heart beat fast, not from fear, but from the thought of being caught. She opened the door slowly, careful not to let it creak. Cold air rushed inside, making her shiver at once. The moment she stepped outside, the wind slapped her face. She pulled her hood up and walked toward the alley. Her boots sank into the snow, leaving small prints behind her. When she got closer, the dogs noticed her. One lifted its head and let out a weak sound, not quite a bark, more like a tired breath. "It's okay," she whispered, even though she did not know if they could understand. "I'm not going to hurt you." She crouched down slowly. Up close, she could see how thin they were. Their ribs showed under their fur. One had a cut on its leg that looked old but painful. Their eyes followed her every move, not with anger, but with caution mixed with hope. She took off her scarf and held it out. The larger dog sniffed it, then gently touched it with his nose. That small action felt like trust. The girl smiled, her fear easing just a little. She knew she could not leave them there. Not tonight, not in this cold. Getting them inside was not easy. The dogs were weak, and the smaller one could barely walk. She wrapped her scarf around his body and slowly guided it toward the house. The larger dog followed, staying close, as if refusing to leave the other behind. Every step felt risky. She kept looking over her shoulder, afraid someone would see. When she reached the door, she paused. Her hand rested on the handle. If she opened it, everything would change. She could get into serious trouble. She could be told to take them back outside. She could be punished. She thought of their shaking bodies. She thought of the quiet way they had accepted the cold. She opened the door. Warm air wrapped around them instantly. The dogs hesitated, unsure. The girl closed the door quickly and locked it. Her heart felt like it was going to jump out of her chest. She guided the dogs into the laundry area, the warmest place near the heater. She grabbed old towels and blankets, laying them on the floor. The dogs lay down without protest, too tired to resist. She dried their fur gently, careful around the injured leg. They did not snap or growl. They just watched her, eyes half closed, as if they finally felt safe enough to rest. She poured some water into a bowl and brought out leftovers from dinner. The dogs ate slowly at first, then faster, as if afraid the food might disappear. She sat beside them, watching, feeling a strange mix of happiness and worry. The sound of footsteps made her freeze. Her guardian was coming. Thinking quickly, she turned off the main light and left only a small lamp on. She whispered to the dogs to stay quiet. When the guardian peeked in, the blankets and towels hid most of them. The girl smiled and said she was just cold and sitting near the heater. The guardian nodded, tired, and went back to the living room. The girl let out a slow breath. That night, she did not sleep much. She lay on the floor near the dogs, listening to their breathing. Outside, the storm continued, but inside there was warmth. The dogs shifted in their sleep, occasionally touching her arm or leg, as if checking that she was still there. She wondered where they had come from. She wondered if someone was looking for them. She wondered if she had done the right thing. As morning slowly approached, snow still covered the streets. The girl finally closed her eyes, unaware that her quiet act of kindness had already set something much bigger in motion. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the window, soft and golden, making the snow outside sparkle like tiny diamonds. The girl had slept only a little, but the dogs had rested more. Their breathing was calmer, and their bodies looked a bit stronger. The girl felt proud, but there was also a flutter of worry in her chest. She had broken the rules by bringing them inside. She had no idea what would happen if her guardian found out, or if someone outside was looking for them. The dogs woke up slowly. The larger one stretched, standing awkwardly at first, unsure if it could move without hurting itself or the smaller dog. The smaller dog looked up with big, tired eyes and wagged its tail slightly. Seeing them like this, safe and warm, gave the girl a feeling she had never felt before. It was like a light had turned on inside her chest, a feeling that kindness could matter, even in a small way. She decided to feed them breakfast. The leftover food from the night before was gone, so she quietly went to the kitchen. She prepared a small bowl of porridge with a little water and mixed in crumbs of bread. She poured it carefully into a shallow dish. The dogs approached slowly. The larger dog sniffed first, then started eating, while the smaller dog took tiny bites, almost afraid to finish. Watching them eat reminded her that they had been alone and hungry for a long time. That thought made her eyes sting with tears. While the dogs ate, she peeked out the window. The snow had stopped falling, but the street was still empty and quiet. She wondered if anyone had seen her bring the dogs inside. She thought about the neighbors and the people who walked by the alley. One of them had probably noticed the shadows the night before. She shivered, not from cold this time, but from fear of getting caught. What would happen if someone reported her? She remembered seeing a note taped to the pole near the trash bins last week. It was about missing pets. She hadn't paid much attention then, but now her stomach sank. What if these dogs were someone's? She didn't want to give them back to anyone if they would get hurt again, but she also didn't want trouble. She sat on the floor beside them, stroking their fur softly, trying to calm herself. The smaller dog limped slightly as it moved toward her. She could see the old cut on its leg, and her heart clenched. She wanted to do more than just feed them and keep them warm. She wanted to help them heal, but she had no money for a vet visit. Her guardian had always said that taking care of animals was expensive, and she knew this would be no exception. But in that moment, she decided that she would do whatever she could, even if it meant sneaking food or asking for help quietly. As she watched, the larger dog walked closer and nudged her hand. It was the first sign of trust she had seen from it since the night before. She smiled and whispered, "Don't worry, I won't let anything happen to you." The smaller dog leaned into her leg, resting its head on her knee. She could feel its fragile body trembling slightly, not from cold anymore, but from exhaustion and fear. Time passed slowly. She kept checking the window, listening for any unusual sounds. She even went outside for a moment to see if anyone was nearby, but the street was empty, and the snow had muffled most noises. When she returned inside, the dogs followed her cautiously, their trust in her growing bit by bit. Later, she went back to the living room, where her guardian was sitting with a cup of tea. She pretended to read a book, but couldn't focus. Her mind kept returning to the dogs and the tiny life she had saved. She wondered if her guardian would be angry if they found out. The thought made her stomach twist, but she also felt a strange sense of determination. She had done the right thing. She knew it in her heart, and that mattered more than fear. Around midday, she decided to clean the area where the dogs were sleeping. She gathered old towels and blankets, shaking off snow and dust. The dogs watched her curiously, tilting their heads when she moved. She felt like she was learning their language, understanding their gestures and expressions without any words. She smiled, feeling a deep connection she had never felt before with any animal. Then something happened that made her pause. The dogs perked up and stared at the window, ears alert. A car drove slowly down the street, and she noticed a person looking toward her house. The girl's heart started racing. She ducked behind the couch with the dogs, holding them close. The person didn't come in. They drove away. But the girl realized that someone had probably seen them last night. The thought of strangers noticing frightened her. What if they reported it? What if someone came to take the dogs away before she had a chance to help them fully? She decided she had to act carefully. She made a plan in her head. She would keep the dogs safe for now, feed them, and help them regain strength. She would not leave the house while anyone was around, and she would find out where they came from quietly, without alerting anyone who might misunderstand her actions. As the afternoon sun began to fade, she noticed small details about the dogs she hadn't seen before. The larger dog had a patch of fur missing near its shoulder. The smaller dog had a tiny collar, half buried under matted fur. These clues told her that the dogs were not just random strays. They might belong to someone or have a story of their own. That thought made her curious, but also more anxious. She realized she was involved in something bigger than she had imagined. She spent the rest of the day close to them, keeping them warm, talking to them softly, and letting them explore the small area of the house. They followed her like shadows, their trust growing steadily. The girl learned their little habits, how the larger dog preferred to sleep stretched out, while the smaller one liked to curl into a ball. She began naming them quietly in her mind, though she didn't speak the names out loud, afraid that someone would overhear. Evening came, and the snow outside had begun to melt slightly, turning to slush in some areas. The girl's guardian noticed the dogs were scattered on the blankets and asked where it came from. She hesitated, but didn't say anything at first. She was scared, but also proud. She finally admitted, "I found them last night. They were freezing." Her guardian's eyes widened, a mix of surprise and concern. "Inside the house?" they asked. The girl nodded, tried to explain quickly. "I couldn't leave them outside. They were so cold, and one was hurt. Please, just for tonight, can they stay?" Her guardian looked at the dogs, noticing their frail condition and tired eyes. For a long moment, there was silence. The girl held her breath, waiting for the anger she expected. But then her guardian said softly, "All right, but we need to take care of them properly. They can't stay here forever like this. We'll find a way." Relief flooded through her. She hugged the larger dog gently, feeling the warmth and the soft fur under her hands. The smaller dog leaned into her, and she whispered promises that everything would be okay. It was the first time she felt that her actions were truly recognized, that her courage and kindness mattered. That night, the girl stayed close to the dogs again. She thought about what the morning might bring. Would the dogs' owners be looking for them? Would someone from the neighborhood notice? She didn't know, but she felt a new sense of purpose. She had saved 2 lives, and now she had a responsibility to protect them, no matter what challenges might come. She closed her eyes with a quiet determination, knowing that the next day would be important. She didn't yet understand the full consequences of her actions, but she knew one thing for sure. She had done what her heart told her was right. And sometimes that was more important than rules, fear, or what anyone else thought. The next morning arrived quietly, but the girl could sense something different in the air. There was a tension she could not explain, like the calm before a storm. She had gone to bed thinking about the dogs and feeling proud of her actions, but now her chest was tight with nervousness. The dogs had slept through the night, curled up on the blanket she had prepared for them, but they were restless as the sun rose. She fed them breakfast as she always did, using leftover porridge and a little bread. The smaller dog ate quickly this time, seeming stronger, while the larger dog moved slowly but steadily, its tail wagging faintly. She watched them with pride, but also with worry. She knew that their sudden appearance in her life was going to bring unexpected consequences, and she could not ignore the feeling that someone was coming to find them. She had barely finished cleaning their eating area when she heard the faint but unmistakable sound of sirens in the distance. Her heart skipped a beat. She pressed her forehead to the window, straining to see. At first, it seemed far away, but then more cars appeared, their flashing lights reflecting off the melting snow. The neighborhood, usually quiet in the morning, suddenly felt tense and uncertain. The girl froze. She did not know what to do. The dogs, sensing her fear, stayed close to her, their noses brushing against her legs. She could see her guardian standing at the door, alarmed, wondering what the commotion was about. The sound of sirens grew louder, and soon police cars and a few other official vehicles were parked along the street, blocking her view of the neighborhood beyond. She felt a wave of panic. Her mind raced. Were they looking for her? Were they here because of the dogs? She knelt beside the dogs, whispering to them to stay calm. They seemed to understand, huddling closer together. Her guardian finally came over, eyes wide, and asked what was happening. She shook her head, unable to explain the fear that had taken over her. The officers began to approach the house carefully, calling out politely, asking if anyone was inside. The girl felt her stomach twist into knots. She wanted to run and hide, but she also could not leave the dogs alone. She peeked out the window again and saw several people moving toward the front door, their expression serious. It was clear that they were searching for something, and her heart sank as she realized the dogs were the reason. She remembered the old collars and the patch of missing fur. Maybe the dogs belonged to someone important or someone who cared deeply about them. Maybe that was why the officers were here. The thought made her hands tremble, but she also knew she could not let fear control her actions. She had to protect them, even if it meant facing authority. Her guardian spoke in a low voice, telling her to stay calm and step back. They opened the door slightly, and an officer called out, asking if there were dogs inside the house. The girl's heart pounded. She did not know what to say. Should she admit everything? Should she protect the dogs silently? She looked at their trusting eyes and knew she had to speak the truth. The guardian nodded to her, giving a silent signal to tell the officers what had happened. The girl took a deep breath and opened the door fully. She stepped forward, trying to appear calm, even though her hands were shaking. The officers greeted them politely but firmly, explaining that the two dogs had been reported missing the previous night. They had been searching for them nonstop, and the dogs had been part of a rescue program for animals in the city. Hearing this, the girl's chest sank. She had no idea that these dogs were part of something so important. She had only wanted to help, but now she realized that her actions had unintentionally involved her in a larger situation. She felt a mixture of fear and guilt, worried that she might get into trouble or be blamed for taking the dogs in. The officers were gentle but persistent. They asked the girl and her guardian to guide them to the dogs. The girl nodded, her throat tight, and led them to the laundry area where the dogs were resting. The dogs looked up, wary but not afraid. They sensed the tension in the room, the seriousness of the situation. The girl whispered to them softly, telling them everything would be okay. When the officers saw the dogs, they knelt down and spoke to them calmly. One officer checked the smaller dog's injured leg, while another looked for identification tags. The dogs remained calm, responding to the gentle voices and movements. The girl watched closely, relieved that they were not scared, even though strangers were now handling them. The officers explained that the dogs had escaped from a transport van during the snowstorm the night before. They had been trained for rescue operations and had specific owners who were desperately searching for them. The girl's heart ached as she realized the dogs had a life and a purpose beyond the small home she had tried to protect them in. Even as the officer spoke, the girl could see the dogs' trust in her. They had been saved from the cold and danger of the streets by her actions. She felt a quiet pride mixed with sadness, knowing that soon they would leave her. She stroked their fur one last time, whispering promises and goodbyes she did not want to say aloud. The officers praised the girl for her courage and kindness, explaining that she had kept the dogs safe and helped them survive until they could be reunited with their owners. Her guardian nodded, proud of her bravery and compassion, understanding that sometimes doing the right thing was more important than following rules. The dogs were carefully taken out of the house, their trust in the girl evident in the way they looked back at her. She felt a lump in her throat as they were lifted into the officer's care. The street outside was filled with a quiet sense of awe from neighbors who had gathered to watch, realizing the small act of kindness had saved the lives of two precious animals. The girl stood by the window, watching as the vehicles drove away, the dogs safe and warm. She felt a mix of emotions: pride, relief, sadness, and a deep sense of responsibility. She had made a difference, even in a small way, and she knew that her actions had mattered. That day, the neighborhood buzzed with stories of the little girl who had saved two dogs from the freezing streets. Her guardian hugged her tightly, telling her how proud they were. The girl smiled softly, understanding that sometimes courage and compassion could change lives in ways no one could predict. As night fell, she sat by the window again, thinking about the dogs and hoping they were safe and comfortable. She realized that life was full of unexpected events, but kindness could always be a guiding light. She went to bed that night with a heart full of hope, knowing that the small choices she made could have a ripple effect far beyond what she could see. The day after the dogs were taken away, the little girl woke up with a quiet emptiness in the house. The blankets and towels still lay on the floor, now cold and unused, and the space where the dogs had slept felt strangely lonely. She missed the soft patting of their paws on the floor, the warmth of their bodies pressed against hers at night, and the way their eyes had followed her every move. The house seemed bigger, quieter, and colder, even though the heating worked fine. She went to the window and looked outside. The snow had begun to melt, leaving patches of slush on the sidewalks. Neighbors were walking to work or school, going about their daily lives. But for her, the world felt different now. Something had changed. She had learned that small acts of kindness could ripple far beyond what she could see. The officers had told her the dogs were safe, that they were with people who cared and who had been looking for them desperately. But she could not shake the feeling that part of her heart had gone with them. Her guardian noticed her quiet mood and came into the room. They did not scold her or ask why she looked so sad. Instead, they sat beside her, gently holding her hand. "You did something very brave," they said softly. "You saved them, and that matters more than anything else." The girl nodded but still felt a mix of pride and sorrow. She had saved lives, yes, but she had also let them go. It was a strange feeling, one that she did not fully understand. She remembered the look in their eyes, the trust they had placed in her, and it made her chest ache. She had wanted to keep them, to care for them herself, but she also knew it was right to let them return to their proper home. The morning passed slowly. She tried to distract herself by reading a book, but her mind kept drifting back to the dogs. She thought about the larger dog, strong yet gentle, and the smaller one, timid but resilient. She remembered the way they had leaned into her for warmth, how they had eaten the food she prepared, and the way they had slept so close to her at night. Those memories made her smile and cry at the same time. Later in the day, there was a knock at the door. She ran to see who it was, her heart racing. Outside stood two of the officers from the day before, holding small envelopes. They smiled warmly and asked if they could come in. The girl's guardian invited them, and they stepped inside carefully, like they were entering a home full of memories. The officers brought news. The dogs had been checked by a veterinarian, who confirmed they were healthy, though they still needed some care. They were now back with their handlers, who were relieved and grateful. But the officers had another reason for coming. They wanted to personally thank the girl. Her courage had ensured the dog's survival during the harsh night. Without her quick thinking and care, the dogs might have suffered more or even been in danger of dying from the cold. The girl felt a mix of relief and surprise. She had expected scolding or at least questions about why she had brought the dogs inside. Instead, the officers praised her. They told her that people often underestimate the impact of a single act of kindness, especially when it comes from someone so young and compassionate. One of the officers knelt to show her a photo of the dogs with their handlers. The dogs looked happy and safe, wagging their tails and looking healthy. Seeing the photos made the girl's eyes well up. She realized that even though she could not keep them, she had made a real difference in their lives. She had been the bridge between danger and safety, cold and warmth, fear and trust. The officer stayed for a little while, asking the girl about the night she had found the dogs. They listened intently as she described how she had wrapped them in scarves, prepared blankets, and fed them. Her voice grew stronger with each detail, and her guardian watched with pride. The officers emphasized that her actions were an example of courage, compassion, and responsibility, qualities that mattered greatly in life. After the officers left, the girl spent the rest of the afternoon thinking. She drew pictures of the dogs, capturing their expressions, their fur, and the moments she had shared with them. Each stroke of her pencil was a memory, a way to hold on to them even though they were gone. She labeled the drawings carefully, noting details she would not forget. The way the larger dog tilted its head when curious, the way the smaller dog curled up to sleep, the way they had both leaned into her for warmth and trust. Her guardian joined her later and suggested they write a small story about the dogs, describing how they had come into their lives and how the little girl had saved them. The girl agreed eagerly, happy to preserve their story and proud that their journey would be remembered. They wrote together, the girl narrating from memory while her guardian helped with spelling and structure. It became a tale of courage, empathy, and the power of small actions. As evening fell, the girl felt a calm settle over her. She had learned lessons that she would carry for the rest of her life. She had learned that fear should never stop someone from doing what is right, that even small actions can save lives, and that trust and kindness could create bonds stronger than fear or rules. Before going to bed, she looked out the window one last time. The street was empty, the snow melting slowly, and the world seemed quiet again. She whispered a soft goodnight to the dogs, wherever they were, hoping they were safe and happy. She felt a sense of closure, knowing that her role in their journey had made a lasting impact. That night, she fell asleep with a smile. The house was quiet, but her heart was full. She knew that the story of the little girl who had taken in 2 freezing dogs would stay with her forever, a reminder of courage, compassion, and the difference one person can make when they follow their heart. Days passed, but the memory of the dogs stayed vividly in the little girl's mind. She often looked out the window, imagining them running safely in the snow or resting comfortably in their warm new home. Each memory brought a mix of happiness and longing. She had done something remarkable and she knew it. But she also missed the soft patting of their paws on the floor, the small nudges for attention, and the gentle warmth they had shared. Her guardian noticed her quiet moods and spoke gently one evening. "You know," they said, "what you did was more than just saving them. You showed bravery, care, and empathy. Not many people do that, especially at your age." The girl nodded, feeling a sense of pride, but also wishing she could have seen the dogs one last time. The officers had promised to keep her updated about the dogs, and one day a letter arrived. Inside were photos of the dogs with their handlers, healthy, happy, and clearly cared for. There was a note thanking her for her actions and explaining how crucial her help had been. Reading the letter, the girl felt a warmth in her chest that made the empty space in the house feel less lonely. She realized that even though the dogs were not physically there, the connection they shared would always remain. The neighborhood had also noticed her courage. People would occasionally stop to say kind words or ask about the story. The little girl learned that sometimes doing the right thing quietly can inspire others without her even realizing it. She felt a sense of responsibility and purpose that had not existed before, a feeling that small acts of kindness could truly matter. Her guardian suggested that they do something lasting to honor the experience. Together, they started a small journal, documenting the night the dogs came, how she cared for them, and what she learned from the experience. The journal became a collection of memories, sketches, and reflections. Each page reminded her that even in difficult times, courage and compassion could create a lasting impact. One afternoon, she sat in the living room, sketching the dogs. She focused on the details she remembered. The tilt of the larger dog's ears when curious, the gentle curve of the smaller dog's back as it slept, and the softness of their fur. As she drew, she realized that her memories were not just about the dogs, but about herself too. She had grown braver, more empathetic, and more confident in her ability to make a difference. Later, her guardian suggested they volunteer at a local animal shelter. The girl agreed eagerly. She wanted to continue helping animals, to use the lessons she had learned to make a difference in other lives. At the shelter, she met dogs and cats of all sizes, some scared, some sick, some abandoned. She approached each one carefully, remembering how important trust and gentle care had been. Her guardian watched her, proud of how much she had grown since that snowy night. Through the shelter, the girl learned about responsibility and dedication. She cleaned, fed, and spent time with the animals, slowly gaining confidence and understanding of what it meant to care for another living being. She remembered the freezing dogs and how her small actions had saved them. It motivated her to continue, knowing that even small efforts could change lives in meaningful ways. Months passed, and the girl grew in ways she had not anticipated. She was kinder, more patient, and more aware of the needs of others, both human and animal. The story of the two dogs had become a part of her life, shaping how she approached the world. She realized that courage was not just about facing danger, but about taking action when it mattered most, even when it was scary or uncertain. One evening, while drawing her journal, she received another letter. This time, it was from the dog's handlers, expressing gratitude once again and inviting her to visit. The girl's heart raced with excitement and nervousness. She had longed to see them, to know they were truly happy. Her guardian encouraged her to go, and they prepared for the visit carefully. The day arrived, and the girl stepped into the yard where the dogs were. They ran to her immediately, recognizing the care and love she had shown them before. She laughed, tears streaming down her face, and knelt to embrace them. Their tails wagged furiously, and they nudged her gently, reminding her of the trust and bond they had shared. The reunion was filled with joy and relief, a moment she would never forget. The handlers watched with smiles, explaining how the dogs had recovered quickly and were now part of important rescue work. They thanked the girl again, emphasizing that her actions had ensured their survival and future. The girl felt proud, knowing that her choice to act with compassion had real, lasting consequences. As she left that day, she felt a sense of closure. She knew the dogs were safe, happy, and loved. She also knew that her own life had changed because of the experience. She had learned the power of kindness, courage, and responsibility. She had discovered that even the smallest actions could ripple outward, touching lives in ways she could not always see. Back at home, the girl sat by the window once more, watching the neighborhood as the snow began to fall again. She felt a quiet sense of satisfaction, knowing that she had done something meaningful. She had been brave when it mattered, gentle when it mattered, and selfless when it mattered most. She understood that life often presented challenges that required not only thought but heart, and she felt ready for whatever might come next. That night, as she drifted off to sleep, she smiled softly. She knew the story of the little girl who had taken in two freezing dogs will remain with her forever, a testament to courage, empathy, and the profound impact of small acts of kindness. And in her heart, she carried a lesson that helping others, no matter how small the gesture, could create a lasting difference in the world.